Breaking UAP news today. Do you remember last year there were several UAPs that were reportedly shot down by like F-16s? And the location where one of these UAPs was shot down is quite close to the Escoda Wurtsmith Airport, which is where the alleged FEMA convoy, at least a while ago, where they were going to potentially send out 350 semis with trailers filled with supplies to the area and use it as a staging ground. Well, now they say they were just looking at that area as a potential location. How odd is it that one of those UAPs shot down was within just a few hundred miles, actually pretty close. So I'm going to share with you the Freedom of Information Act emails that were just released. And we're going to look at the news article from the War Zone, details about search for mystery object shot down over Lake Huron disclosed. If you're interested in this webinar, we've got another webinar coming up next week for how to turn your passion into profit, how to be the change you want to see, how to create multiple income streams. And the webinar is free and great success so far. So if you're interested, send me an email, leakproject@gmail.com. and I will get you on the invite list. All right, have a beautiful day. No information about anything retrieved in searches after 3 still unidentified objects were downed over the US and Canada has previously emerged. Well, now it's going to get interesting. So the search for clues after a United States Air Force F-16 Viper fighter brought down a still unidentified object over Lake Huron, February 2023. Resulting in the recovery of debris. Now it's been disclosed. However, it remains unclear whether or not the wreckage was from that shootdown. How bizarre, right? So these new details continue to raise more questions about the downing of this and 2 other mystery objects that same month in America and Canadian skies. More information has not been made public until now. Canada's CTV News first reported earlier today on the previously unannounced debris recovery, which was part of the search for whatever was left of what had been sailing through the skies above Lake Huron, February 12, 2023. This and other new information in CTV News story comes from a string of emails between Canadian military officials as well as members of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Also, a heavily redacted Royal Canadian Air Force report, records that were obtained via a request under the Canada's Access to Information Act, which is similar to the Freedom of Information Act here in the US, but is accessible only to Canadian citizens. The article then goes on to say 3 different unidentified objects that were flying in US and Canadian airspace were brought down by US Air Force jets in as many days in February 2023. Lake Huron shootdown followed ones in the skies off the coast of Alaska and over Canada's Yukon Territory, February 10th and 11th of that year. This is also following the downing of the Chinese spy balloon, which was passing over parts of the United States and Canada for days off the coast of South Carolina, February 4th. And if you look at the eclipse path, the most recent eclipse path, actually it was the 2017 eclipse path, very similar to the trajectory of this Chinese spy balloon. Now, previous official statements about the audio recordings from the Lake Huron shootdown described the object as having an octagonal shape, strings hanging down from it, along with may have been a small dark-colored payload suspended underneath the object. Debris was discovered last week, reported, I believe, through CAF, Canadian Armed Forces, Comms Line, and the RCMP now has possession of it. I understand there is both material and a module. Mark Flynn, the RCMP's Deputy Commissioner for Federal Policing, wrote in the email to the CAF's Brig General Eric LaForest, then Strategic Joint Staff Director of General Operations, on March 13, 2023. The module is from a company who sells weather monitoring equipment. It will be analyzed to determine if there's anything unusual with it, but I suspect not given the size. Whether or not it is from the shoot down is uncertain. See, that's where it just gets like there's once again, the UAP is a weather balloon. Yeah, are you really think an F-16 is gonna be like, oh my gosh, it's a UAP, it's a weather balloon, I'm gonna shoot it down. Oh, it was just a weather balloon, oops. I mean, to me, this seems ridiculous. I don't see a pilot shooting down like in 3 different circumstances in that short amount of time, unless they were briefed that like, if you see anything in the skies, even if it's a weather balloon, shoot it down, and then we'll just tell the media it's a UAP, and they'll think it's an alien or something. But this is also around the time when Langley and other facilities were being swarmed and surveyed and reconned by what is referred to in these reports as drones that are up to 20 feet in length, traveling at 100 miles an hour at 3,000 feet elevation for days, like 2 weeks approximately in Langley, that they're telling us about. Langley, they have nuclear bombers there. That place is like one of the crown jewels of the U.S. military, and there's drones flying over it for weeks. And then there's reports of FEMA convoys going out to Michigan in the middle of nowhere practically. This is all just so bizarre. And I have different thoughts about this. I'm just sharing the information with you. Clearly, this is fascinating. And be prepared, not scared. And let's go back to the article here. Also interesting to note that a Canadian Strategic Joint Staff briefing slide from May 2023 explicitly mentions debris near or in Canadian waters following the Lake Huron shootdown, but provides no further details, at least that are unredacted. Independent researcher Steve Tay shared slides from this briefing, which was given during a meeting between members of the CAF and the country's Office of the Chief Science Advisor in relation to the Sky Canada project. And it was on X last week. Now, there was a project that came out in 2022, Sky Canada, to study how unidentified aerial phenomena reports from the public are managed in Canada and to recommend improvements. Wow. What is going on? You can also read CTV News. Police in Canada collected wreckage after object shot down over Lake Huron. The unidentified object was shot down by a U.S. F-16 fighter jet on the afternoon of February 12, 2023, over Lake Huron, which separates Michigan and Ontario. It was the third and final unidentified object blasted out of North America's skies that month, following the high-profile February 4, 2023 downing of the apparent Chinese surveillance balloon. At the time, the object was described as octagonal in structure with strings hanging off of it, and it reportedly slowly descended into Canadian waters after being hit by one of 2 missiles that were fired at it. Officials characterized it as a suspected balloon that did not pose a military threat but could have interfered with domestic air traffic. Okay, so you shoot a weather balloon with a missile and it slowly descends into Canadian waters. Does that make logical sense? I'm going to have to look up video footage of balloons being shot with missiles and then watch the balloon like... I'm imagining in a cartoon where the balloon makes that goofy noise and it's like... Balloons don't, like... come on here! Swamp gas? Weather balloons? It's the same excuse every time. Oh, it's just a weather balloon. Yeah, we had to have F-16 Vipers shoot it down with missiles. And the balloon just slowly fell into the water and it disappeared. Oh, no, we got debris. We got the module. But it could be something else. We don't know if we shot down a weather balloon or something else. I mean, the pilots don't remember. They have amnesia. They had such a traumatic experience shooting down a weather balloon that now they just can't recall what it was. And now we don't know. So... here's the information we'd like to share with you. Don't you love it? Don't you love the? I mean, we're totally transparent. I mean, come on. Oh. Then this article goes on to say, Ian Boyd, a professor of aerospace engineering and director of the Center for National Security Initiatives at the University of Colorado Boulder, Boyd speculates that the continued lack of information on these cases could be because the U.S. and Canadian governments were embarrassed after shooting down objects that weren't really national security threats. They're like, man, I just shot down a weather balloon with a missile. Oh, that's kind of embarrassing, man. Let's just say it's a UAP and they might think that they're aliens. That might make sense, but I don't think a pilot that they're going to put out there in an F-16, unless the pilot's like, look, it's a weather balloon. They're like, don't care, shoot it down anyway. It might be something else. Woo-wee. All right, so to have expended significant military time and resources to shoot down benign objects does not look good, even though there may have been many factors we are still unaware of, Boyd told CTV News. I am not surprised that the Canadian government did not share more information about the Lake Huron debris. Now, CTV News Canada previously published the first confirmed image of the object shot down over the Yukon February 11, 2023, which was obtained through an access to information request. The RCMP also oversaw Yukon search efforts, which were called off without success February 18, 2023. The RCMP is Canada's federal police force. I want to see what the image of this object looks like that was shot down over the Yukon. I never saw that. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. This is pretty cool. Oh, listen to this. And now I never saw this. This looks like a Pac-Man, like a space Pac-Man. An image of the unidentified object shot down over Canada's Yukon territory in February. In February 2023 has been obtained by CTV News.Canada. Released through a Canadian Freedom of Information request, the grainy image appears to be a photocopy of an email printout. Heavily redacted documents show how the image was approved for public distribution within days of the headline-grabbing incident, but then held back after a public affairs official expressed concerns that releasing it may create more questions and confusion. They're like, take a photograph of Pac-Man on that video game arcade, and then we'll just change the color a bit, and we'll say it's a UAP. That doesn't look like a weather balloon to me. Looks like it looks like a UAP. So what did NORAD shoot down? Well, the F-22 fighter jet shot down the object February 11, 2023, shortly after it entered Canadian airspace in the Yukon Territory, which borders Alaska. It was one of 3 unidentified aerial objects blasted out of the sky that month following the high-profile February 4th, 2023 downing of the apparent Chinese surveillance balloon. Shot down over Alaska, Yukon, and Lake Huron between February 10th and 12th, 2023, the 3 objects were reportedly much smaller than the towering Chinese balloon. At the time, officials described the Yukon object as a suspected balloon. Of course they did. That was cylindrical in shape. A reported Pentagon memo said it appeared to be a small metallic balloon with a tethered payload below it. Released as part of the Freedom of Information request package, an email from a Canadian Brigadier General offered what they described as the best description that we have yet of the Yukon object. Visual, a cylindrical object, they wrote February 11, 2023. In the email, top quarter is metallic, remainder white, 20-foot wire hanging below with a package of some sort suspended from it. The image appears to have been taken from an aircraft below it, although that has not been confirmed. So, why was the image never released? The image of the Yukon object was distributed internally February 14, 2023. The next morning, it was declared unclassified and approved for public release. In a partially redacted email thread, additional footage is mentioned. Canada's former top soldier and previous Chief of Defense Staff General Wayne Irie even suggested using the declassified picture in an upcoming social media post. The newer photo was never released. There was back and forth about why they wouldn't release it, etc. Here's a quote. Should the image be released, it would be via the Canadian Armed Forces social media accounts, the public affairs official wrote February 15, 2023. Given the current public environment and statements related to the object being benign, releasing the image may create more questions and confusion, regardless of the text that will accompany the post. Later that afternoon, General Irie's public affairs officer added that the image would be held back pending U.S. engagement. The photo was never released. I mean, none of it seems to match up. Well, when they talk about the balloon itself suspending something 20 feet below, that actually doesn't look like the picture that they showed us. So why don't they just show us the picture where there's an object suspended 20 feet with some type of strings or ropes or tether? And then the reports about the drones flying over Langley that just came out a couple of days ago at that UAP hearing were described as being 20 feet in length, but they were moving at 100 miles an hour, 3,000 feet above the base, and they were not shot down, at least according to the reports, in fears of other air traffic above them that might be harmed. So this is all, in my opinion, just very... yeah. What are your thoughts? Thanks for watching. Hit the bell. Check back daily for new notifications. We upload videos pretty much every single day. Make it a part of your daily routine. And have a beautiful day, everybody. We've also got exclusive content on Patreon, as well as leakproject.com. Podcasts you're not going to hear anywhere else. Long format interviews with amazing guests. Information that you're only going to be able to hear at those platforms also, obviously. And be the change you want to see.